Thank you for coming this afternoon. My name is Chris Van Wessep. I look after product marketing for Windows Server worldwide, and I'm joined by Jeff.
Hi, I'm Jeff Woolsey. I'm a Principal Program Manager in Windows Server.
Let me start by asking, this morning Jeff and I gave a talk with Aaron Chappell. How many people came to that one? Okay, maybe a quarter of the folks.
Okay.
We're just trying to gauge how much is recap versus new for folks. So what we decided to do with this session is we've gone through this big change. We're starting right now really with Windows Server and kind of the release cadence of how we deliver the product. So we wanted to have a session dedicated just to helping educate folks on what's changing, how should we think about it, what's not changing relative to the way we used to do things. And so the way we set this up is we took a bit of the slides from this morning that were relevant to that part of the conversation. I'll take a little bit more time to go through those in some more detail here. Jeff and I have pulled together what we look at kind of the top 6, 7, 8 questions that we get asked about this new release cadence. So we'll be doing a bit of a dialogue up here around those. But we also wanted to reserve time for you folks to ask questions, because this really is what this session is about, is making sure that your questions are getting answered. So when we get to this section, it'll be about halfway through. We get through about 6 or 7 slides, and then we're going to flip to these kind of top Q&A slides. As we get to that section, I'd invite people to start coming up to the mic, and we've got questions we'll kind of do back and forth with, but as soon as folks start showing up, we'll pause and take your questions as well. So that's the game plan for this one. So what we're trying to get out of this session, what you guys should be trying to get out of it, really is understanding what this new release cadence is all about. It is, like I said, it's a pretty big change, so getting really grounded on what this means, and then get whatever questions you have at the top of your mind answered. So, well, the first thing is this is called semi-annual channel. You can think of it in terms of, as we debated what to call this thing, we have in the past had what we call the long-term servicing branch.
Oh my goodness.
LTSB.
Rolls right off the tongue, Chris.
Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue. It's almost like a marketing person thought of that one. We actually went around and talked to people afterwards, and a lot of customers said, I'm not a developer, I don't know what a branch is, and I don't know why you would call something a branch. It's a developer kind of term. So we thought, well, this is kind of the channel through which you receive releases, so let's call it channel. And this was actually compliments of our friends in Office and Client Group. They came up with it and said, by the way, server, here's the name of the thing. You guys get to use it too. I said, great. So there is the long-term servicing channel and the semi-annual channel. Semi-annual channel is what we're going to be talking about now, and as the name denotes, we're talking about releases every 6 months. So that was really the first piece of news, is that Windows Server is joining this semi-annual channel release cadence. And like I said, this is something that back in April, the client team and Office team came out, and this is actually a really good piece of news if you haven't caught it yet. There had been so much confusion over the years of, well, does this version of client work with the 2013 version of Office, and which ones go with what? So what they decided to do is they say, hey, going forward, we're going to put out a release every 6 months. It'll be at the same time for Client and Office. It'll be called the same thing, and it'll be supported for 18 months. So for any point in time, there'll be 3 releases in market, and those 3 releases will all work with each other. So any release of Office will work with any release of Client within that 18-month window, which I actually thought was relatively brilliant. Like, there's a very customer-focused way of delivering things. So we looked at it on the server side and said, you know what, we've been getting asked so many times to figure out a way to infuse innovation faster and allow customers who want to take that innovation faster to be able to do so. And so that's why we decided to join this semi-annual channel of releases as well. There are some qualifiers in terms of how we're doing things relative to what Client and Office are doing, and that's really what this session is meant to expose as well.
And one of the things I want to point out here is this has long been a challenge for us in server. So I've been in server now for almost 15 years, and we've been literally watching and listening and trying to understand the way you guys use server, and it's amazing the challenges we have. I'll give you a perfect example. We've been shipping server now pretty much like clockwork every 2 to 3 years, going all the way back to server 2003, okay? And for the longest time, we would get escalations from customers of all shapes and all sizes that would say, Microsoft, you're too slow. I don't want a server release every 2 to 3 years. It's just too slow. What's the matter with you? Why can't you move faster? So what we did was in 2012, we went from 2012, literally 11 months later, to 2012 R2. Guess what the top complaint was? You're too fast. I was like, I thought my head was going to like swivel off. I was like, what? We did exactly what you asked for, and that became the top escalation. We just got all our 2012 deployed. We are feeling great about it, and now you deployed in R2. What's the matter with you? And so with 2012 R2 to 2016, we looked at it again during this development cycle, and we tried something a little bit differently. In those releases between up to 2016, we delivered these technical previews. And in every technical preview, it was a little bit different than the way we'd done it in the past. In the past, we'd say, hey, we'll have a beta release, and we'll tie it to a specific marketing event like Ignite, or Ready, or some big event. With these technical previews, we literally just released a technical preview, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and just literally dropped a whole bunch of new features in every single one of those, just to see what that was like. And guess what? Customers loved it. They were like, oh man, every new technical preview, you're giving me all sorts of new functionality. Like literally, version 1 dropped that, had a whole bunch of new capabilities. 2 came out, 3 came out, added containers. 4 came out, added Linux Hyper-V containers, and people were loving it. In fact, it was weird because we actually had some people stop us and say, hey, can I run this technical preview in production? And we were like, wait a minute, what? So what we found out was during this cycle was we really do have 2 cadences. We have folks that literally like the 2 to 3 year cycle, and then we have folks that say, no, 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 I will absolutely go much faster, and I will take every 6 months. And so what you're seeing is we're responding to your input and your feedback to come back with these 2 channels. And the semi-annual channel is all about that. It's about delivering you innovation faster. And that's one of the things we really want to talk about and explain to you as to the use cases and why and how as part of this talk.
Yep, that's exactly it. And to even add to that point is if you look at the 2 scenarios that we've kind of laid out on the slide here, you'll find the left-hand side says, hey, I really want to move fast. I want innovation as quickly as you're able to give it to me. The right-hand side says, hey, I need some more stability and predictability in the applications that I'm deploying. This need not be 2 separate people. It can just be different parts of your data center and your application portfolio. And this is something I spend a lot of time talking to customers about, which is people tend to have it in their head that they say, well, now it's time to start our server upgrade. So everything from the infrastructure through the applications, it's all, we're going to start the 3-year process of upgrading our servers. And people are starting to break that mental model, which says, look, the OS that the application runs on need not be the same version that the infrastructure, the hypervisor, the virtualized environment is running on. You can have these 2 things separated. And in fact, you may find a situation where you say, look, you just made an awesome enhancement in clustering capabilities. I would love to have that in my host virtualization layer, but I'm not going to change the operating system that this app's running on because that's not time to do that and it's not prudent. So being able to separate these 2 things apart and realizing that, hey, there may be part of my environment that lends itself very nicely to this faster release cadence. And of course, there's part of my environment that's not going to lend itself to it. And so having that kind of flexibility and looking at it from both sides is I think, important. So some key characteristics with semi-annual channel release. Twice a year, comes out in the fall and the spring. So we just had this release, and we'll have another one in the March-ish timeframe. And then it's supported in production for 18 months. So this is something that's obviously new. We've had this model over the past where it's 5 plus 5, right? 5 years mainstream support, 5 years of extended support. And with this way of doing things, what we are finding and what we've gone through with customers is realizing that, look, especially for the things for which we will be deploying this, it's okay to have it in production and supported for 18 months because I intend to get off of that version and move to the next version. We see where you're going with things like containers. Why on earth would I want to stay on the version of the container image that's 18 months old? That doesn't even make sense. And so the use cases for this lend itself very nicely to going through regular update cycles. And when you're updating clustered environments that can do mixed mode rolling cluster upgrades, or you're updating container images, these things are much, much easier to update than we've had in the past. So the upgrading process won't be nearly as onerous as it has been in the past.
The container example is a perfect example. So if you were using Nano Server, for example, with the version that we shipped at 2016, that was over 450 megabytes in size. Now we've released 1709, and Nano Server is less than 100 megabytes in size. If you're a developer, oh my gosh, you are excited out of your mind that you want this new version, which is smaller, much more compact, much more efficient. By the way, no loss of features, no loss of functionality. You want that really badly, and the good news is, if you're developing containers, guess what? You just drop in the new image. That's all. That's all there is to it. So if you're in a continuous pipeline world, continuous development, it's really that simple. So as you're writing new cloud apps, that makes sense. Well, Server Core fits that model as well. If you've taken some old apps that you've lifted and shifted, and again, you used Server 2016, the Server Core image of that was many gigabytes. The Server Core image of that is much, much smaller in 1709. Guess what? Drop that in container, and again, it's the same thing. It's literally you move to 1709, so you drop in a new container and go. And so you can easily and quickly take advantage of those capabilities for the container aspect. Infrastructure is another one. Now this release, I'll be honest with you, the 1709 release, this one we focus specifically on containers because the feedback from you guys has been, oh my gosh, we're doing a ton of innovation on containers and we really want to get more into this, so focus on that. So the work that we've done for SDDC, you're going to see really in the next Insider preview, and we'll get to that. But we believe the same way for infrastructure. If I'm running Hyper-V, I should be able to run that completely Server Core, use Honolulu, use System Center, manage it remotely. And guess what? Because I can use mixed mode clusters, I can live migrate VMs, upgrade new servers, live migrate them back without any downtime. So that one makes a lot of sense. But it is some of those older applications that don't fit that model where you may say, you know what, I'm not comfortable with the semi-annual channel release for those, and that's where the long-term servicing channel comes in.
Yep. Worth noting on the semi-annual channel side, you need software assurance on your Windows Server license to take advantage of the semi-annual channel. The rationale for this is the following. What the semi-annual channel releases really are is they're kind of a first look at what you will see in the next long-term servicing channel. So it's actually not an update to 2016. It's the first look at, whatever you want to call it, 2019, something like that. We haven't given any name to what the next one will be, but you can conceptualize that there will be something out there in 2 or 3 years. So it's first looks at features of that release that you can run in production. And from a licensing perspective, the way we license the ability to run future releases is through software assurance. So keep software assurance on your Windows Server licenses and take advantage of the semi-annual channel releases. From a naming perspective, and obviously if you're running in Azure or actually any hosted environments, you'll get access to those builds as well. The way Azure works, the way service provider licensing works, that's effectively an annuity agreement also, kind of like software assurance. So we put the images are available there as well. On the naming, we're just calling it Windows Server. We spent a lot of time talking to customers, analysts, partners, a bunch of different folks, and we had a bunch of different names we were considering. And finally, the people came back, they're like, it's just Windows Server. Just call it Windows Server. Comes out every 6 months. There's a new version that comes out every 6 months, but it's just Windows Server. We thought, man, there's like some nice simplicity to that approach. And so that's what we did. So it's Windows Server, and then in the same way that client has been doing, we'll append it as appropriate with the version number. So version 1709 is what comes out this fall, 2017, 9th month of the year, 1709. So you could imagine something like 1803 if we end up shipping in March of next year, that kind of naming construct. Long-term servicing channel is what you've used in the past, so it's every 2 to 3 years, 5 years of mainstream support, 5 years of extended support. If you're not familiar with it, premium assurance is the other bullet on there that says additional 6 years. We found that when we got to the 2003 end of support moment a couple of years ago, that a lot of people still were running applications on 2003. And it's out of support. It's been out of support for a couple of years now. We don't want to run into the same problem with folks when we get to the end of 2008, which is in 2 years from this January 2020. So what we're putting in place is a program for a nominal uplift. I think it's like 7% this year or something like that. It goes up each year, but you get 6 more years of extended support. So in this day and age when everybody is very validly concerned about security breaches, especially running on older software, premium assurance is a great way to take care of that. My little pitch for that. So available through all channels, the naming construct stays the same. Windows Server plus year is typically the way we do it.
The important thing to point out about LTSC, for those folks that have been doing Windows Server for a very long time, this is exactly the way we've been doing it for the last 20 years, okay? And I think most of you probably see that and get it. I just want to underline that because I've had a few people come up to me and go, why are you taking away my Windows Server? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's exactly the same. All we're doing is adding the one on the left, which means, guess what? You're going to get features faster. Instead of saying, hey, you know what? I want dedupe on RAFS. Well, guess what? You're not going to have to wait 3 years. You're going to get it faster. You're going to get it in the next release. I want Linux shielded VMs. You're not going to have to wait 3 years. It's coming in the next insider preview. Guess what? It's already there. So you're getting stuff faster than ever before. We're just lighting up a new way to get you stuff faster. That's all.
Yep.
And again, take advantage of both depending on the workload you're using.
So conceptually, here's basically how it works. This line at the bottom is a typical release of an LTSC, like Windows Server 2016. So it would come out, and then it would be in support for 5+5. The way I think about the semi-annual channel releases is kind of think of an up and to the right. If you think of the y-axis being functionality, per se, we're going to keep increasing functionality over time. And so, like right now, we're releasing version 1709. That'll hit the market and be in support for 18 months. Then in 6 months, we'll have another release. And then 6 months later, we'll have another release. And it kind of keeps staggering like this until we get to a point where we say, you know what, there was a body of work that we were intending to do for the next LTSC release. We've met that. We've done that with this semi-annual channel release. Therefore, we will declare that at this point, this is also an LTSC, and we will support it for 5+5 years. But then the line keeps going up and to the right as well. So you keep getting these releases every 6 months. At some point, and we'll let you know when it's coming. We'll say, look, that body of work is complete, and for this SAC release, it will also be the LTSC release, and it'll be supported over the next 10 years.
And keep in mind on the Windows Server line, the yellow one going straight across, let's be clear, those are security patch updates like we've been doing. We've been doing monthly cumulative updates. By the way, I want to point out a little point here. This has been a huge win for us. We have seen reliability and resiliency numbers going up, way up. Why? Because we no longer have this challenge where people used to be putting Swiss cheese patches on servers. And this has been a huge win. We have seen support calls go way down since we started doing this, the monthly cumulative updates. So Server 2016 going forward continues to get monthly patches, but let's be clear here, there's no new features. That's it. Server 2016 is done. That's it. You get security, you get patches, and that's what you have. The new features, those are what's rolling up in the semi-annual channel releases. And again, as we get to the next release, as Chris mentions, then we'll call something an LTSC, and then the same progress goes along. So we're trying to, again, make this very straightforward.
Yep. For those of you who have been paying attention, you might say, hey, but there was a Spring Creators update for client. Where's the server one? We didn't do one. So that was, in the inside track, you'll hear about the Redstone releases. That's the code names we put against it. So that was the RS2 release was in the spring. We didn't have one there. We did a boatload of work, but it ended up being a lot of plumbing work that wouldn't have shown up as something that was, valuable inherently to end users. So the work that was done through that time frame is now landing in the RS3, which is the 1709 release. So that's why we didn't have that there. So the other thing that we did for this release that's a change is we introduced Server Core to the semi-annual channel. So when we launched Windows Server 2016, you had 3 different installation options. You had the full server with the desktop experience, you had Server Core, and you had Nano Server. And effectively, they were scaled versions of the full server product. And for Nano Server, that was only available through what was effectively the semi-annual channel. It was only going to be supported in that instantiation for 18 months, and then we were going to have a new one come out, which we've got now with 1709. At that time, Server Core was LTSC only, and through the usage of 2016 and a lot of feedback from customers, we realized a couple of things with Nano Server. So Nano Server had 2 identities. One was it was going to be a host server, and so particularly in that release, you could think about compute clusters and storage clusters and being the host functionality for that. It was also going to be used for containers and container images. And so there were a couple of pieces of key feedback that were coming in from folks like yourselves. One was, boy, I love using this for containers. In fact, 90+% of the utilization was on the container side of things. And we thought, oh, that's interesting. It's, there's a definite trend toward a use case for this thing. And then the other piece of feedback was, it's too big. You got too much crap packed in there, and it's not small enough to do containers properly. And so we thought about this, and we said, we started in this model of kind of having the big, medium, and small size operating system, but maybe we were going down the wrong path. Maybe what we needed to do was, between Server Core and Nano Server, dedicate them to specific use cases. And so that's what we did here, and that's what we're talking about, introducing Server Core to the semi-annual channel. What we said was, going forward, and starting with this release right now, Nano Server will be dedicated to containers, which means we can do some very interesting things. We can pull out all that code that was being used for doing host functionality. And by the way, all of that work required some significant porting from the full and Server Core versions into the Nano Server operating system. And the amount of engineering effort that was being put into getting stuff in there, coupled with the fact that people were really excited about using it for containers, just made it fairly obvious that we were trying to put a round peg in a square hole with this, and that if we just really dedicated it to containers, we would end up with a lot better
I have to ask a question. Did anybody happen to raise your hand if this is true, if you actually did this, did anybody actually get Hyper-V and Nano Server actually installed on hardware? 2, 3, 4, 5? I applaud you. That was insane, wasn't it? You wanted to throw yourself off a building afterwards, didn't you? See, I can tell who's actually installed Nano Server, and I can tell who hasn't installed Nano Server on hardware. Because I'll admit, the promise of Nano Server on hardware looked great on PowerPoint slides. But when there's no setup, when there's no installer, when there's no plug and play, when there's no update mechanism, all of a sudden, the people that tried to install it, kudos to you guys, it's really, really hard. And the biggest challenge was when we talked to folks that actually do using Nano Server in containers, they said, this thing is way too huge. It's over 450 megabytes. And the reason why is because we had driver support in there, plug and play support in there, a whole servicing stack in there. And if you're doing this in a container, guess what? I don't need any of that stuff. I don't need a servicing stack. I don't need plug and play because I'm just going to replace the image. That's one of the reasons Nano Server got so small so quickly, because we didn't need any of that stuff in there. At the same time, from a Server Core perspective, a lot of people don't realize we actually trimmed the heck out of Server Core as well through some very fortuitous optimizations as well. Server Core in 1709 is less than half the size. Went from over 5 to just over 2. So it got dramatically smaller, and we're going to continue to do work there as well. From a patching standpoint, patching actually has changed dramatically since we do cumulative updates. Since we do them every month, the number of patches that we've had for full server, for Server Core and Nano Server is identical. So I know in theory we thought it was going to drastically reduce patching. So far it actually hasn't. I wouldn't have done a thing. And more importantly, now that we've focused it on Nano Server for containers, developers are extremely happy because now we're building the right solution for containers. And for Server Core, we're focused tremendously on optimizing and, more importantly, solving the #1 request that everybody has, which is give me a way to easily manage my servers remotely. Give me a modern way to manage my servers remotely. The absolute top request on user voice is modern remote management on Windows Server. And I'm thrilled that we're doing it with Honolulu. So those are some of the big changes we made here in our thinking around both Nano Server and Server Core.
How many people in the room, we've showcased it in a couple of different places so far, have seen Project Honolulu so far? Good.
Good number so far.
Is it a good thing? Are people, is that a
You guys liking what you see?
good thing? Okay, good. Yeah. Awesome, because if you hadn't, we were going to show it to you again. Drive that home. Okay, so on the Server Core side, so now we have Server Core that got released in the long-term servicing channel for 2016 is also now available as part of the semi-annual channel. And so depending on which version, and keep in mind, what gets 1709 is a completely different build than what happened last fall. So it's not I had a question the other day in our sales alias internally that said, but how will I know when I set it up what it is? Is it supposed to be every 18 months or is it long term? I said, well, what are you deploying? Because they're completely different products. Like one's a version that was built last year and one's this one. They have completely different build numbers and you will only be using one thing. So that's important. But it is available through both avenues. What you use it for, obviously there's a whole set of things that we've talked about with Server Core being really the more modern way of dealing with your data center infrastructure. When it comes to containers, this is what's important is the Server Core container image is what you would be using if you're looking at a lift and shift scenario where you need .NET functionality to map to your legacy application. You will also use Server Core as the container host, container image. When you think about Nano Server is just a container image. You'll still use Server Core as the container host. So Server Core plays a few different roles here, but really we're trying to deliver everything to folks in just a couple of different SKUs effectively. And then just for completion and transparency, there's obviously also the traditional server with desktop experience. That's what was delivered last year in 2016. In 2 to 3 years, we'll deliver another LTSC release of Windows Server. But in the interim, there won't be any GUI-based functionality, which is, again, why we're so excited that Project Honolulu's in the pipeline and coming up to speed.
You're going to make me demo it if you keep talking about it.
You want to run with this one?
Sure. So from a hybrid application platform, a few things. Go ahead and give me the clicker. So a few things. Number one, the container optimized Nano Server. As I've already mentioned, it has gotten drastically smaller. We went from over 450 megabytes to less than 100. Okay, that may not sound like that big a deal. For a developer, it's a huge deal because a developer is going to pull down that image, and most importantly, when you deploy apps, the size actually starts to matter. The fact that it's smaller allows us to increase container density and performance. From a .NET standpoint, .NET Core is the next generation version of .NET, and more importantly, gives us a world where we can be cross-platform. We need to run apps anywhere on any cloud using any OS. Guess what? Runs on Linux, runs on, I can make it a Windows, and of course, it's just there. And we're going to continue to add even more features and capabilities, but cross-platform is what .NET Core is all about. Now, one of the things and one of the challenges we see with containers, of course, is storage. Keep in mind that when you fire up a container and you do a whole bunch of work and you turn that container off and turn it back on, every time you turn it on, it's a brand new container. When you turn it off, if there were any changes inside that container, they're gone the moment you turn it off. For folks thinking of it from a virtual machine standpoint, imagine turning on a VM with a differencing disk, turning off the VM and throwing out the diff disk. Literally no writes happen inside the container. So in a container, it means you need to have durable storage elsewhere, like on a file share or block storage locally, or block storage that is remote, but allows me to save the data somewhere outside of the container. One of the things we want to do to make that easy is provide SMB support in your container so you can use your file servers to do that. And then, of course, then you can use things like Azure Files to give you that limitless storage up and back it all up into Azure and use your hybrid capabilities. But most importantly, we just want to make sure that when you fire up a container, look, here's my SMB and all my storage is stored there, and it's really easy to manage. And then, of course, there's the work we've done with Linux containers. So the work that we've done in containers and Hyper-V isolation, we've now taken to the next step farther. Last year, when we released Windows Server 2016 and we introduced containers, we introduced Windows Server containers, and we also introduced this thing called Hyper-V isolation. And the Hyper-V isolation was really fantastic, because for folks that want to deploy containers, they like the fact that virtualization has always provided really hard isolation. We use actual processor capabilities, motherboard capabilities to isolate VMs from others. So when you fire up a VM, its OS, its kernel, its memory, its storage, its network resources are all encapsulated inside that VM. In a container, it's not that clear cut, because in fact, containers, the virtualization layer has actually moved. You're not actually virtualizing at the machine layer, you're virtualizing at the kernel layer. So each container is actually talking to the same kernel. So if I've got 5 containers running on top of an OS, they're isolated from each other, sure, great. They think they're the only thing running on the server, but they're all talking to the same shared kernel. If you work in a compliance environment, if you work in a regulatory environment, if you want to put something in the public cloud where you don't know who the other tenants are, you're going to want to make sure that you've got some isolation. And the big brute force way that people are trying to solve that right now is, oh, we'll just stick everything back in a VM. But you're ruining the benefits of putting it in a container in the first place. So we introduced Hyper-V isolation, so each one of those containers is truly and completely isolated from each other. We slide the kernel underneath, you don't have to do anything, and the container fires up and is truly and completely isolated from each other. Well, when we did that for Windows last year with Hyper-V isolation, a number of very forward-thinking people said to us, wait a minute, does that have to be a Windows container? For 2016, the answer was yes. In 1709, the answer is no. We can now do Linux containers. And let's be clear, this is truly a Linux kernel. This isn't WSL, this isn't the subsystem for Linux. This is truly the Red Hat kernel, or the SUSE kernel, or the Ubuntu kernel, or the Alpine kernel, or whatever. Choose the kernel you want to use. It's real Linux. Okay, so Linux containers, we slide the Linux container in there, and now with Windows Server, you can run whatever container you want. You want to run Windows? Great. Deploy your Windows Server hosts. You can run now Windows containers. You can run Red Hat containers, Ubuntu containers, Debian containers, Alpine. We don't care. So now you can standardize on your host and run whatever container you want. And then from a management standpoint, of course, if you want to use WSL, we have now put the Windows subsystem for Linux into Server specifically so you can do things like Bash. So if you're doing automation of your Linux containers, guess what? You probably have Bash scripts. Well, now it makes sense to actually have WSL in Server because you can take those Bash scripts, you can run those, and guess what? You can automate your Linux containers. Or, of course, you could use PowerShell to automate both your Windows and Linux. See all of the cross-platform work we've been doing across PowerShell and Linux and Hyper-V, this is all coming to fruition. We want to give you the best tools, the best playground to build whatever applications your developers want to build. For IT pros, we want to give you the best environment to provide what your developers and what your organization needs. So that's what we're doing there on the Plat side. And then, of course, on the management side, you know, so many of you have seen Honolulu that I'm not going to break into a demo right now, even though I really, really want to. But Honolulu is about that reimagining of server. You know, we have today all of these different tools that you're used to using to manage a server, whether it's Task Manager, Event Viewer, Server Manager, the list goes on and on. But that's because of the organic growth and the super popularity of Windows Server over the last couple decades. Well, now we actually want to take a step back and modernize that remote management experience. And for me, what I'd like to be able to do is say, look, let's roll in a couple of servers, all running server core completely GUI-less, and I hand you a Surface. And I say, by the way, you can manage all those remotely without ever touching the box. It's all touch friendly, it's all HTML5, add roles, add features, do your management. By the way, if you want to back it up to Azure, great. If you want to set up a VPN to Azure, great. If you want to do site recovery, if you want to do replication, great. It's all right there on a touch friendly GUI, and you never touch the box. That's the type of management I want to see with server. I want to make it easy for you to do all of these things. And so that's why we did Project Honolulu. And if you haven't downloaded the bits yet, please do. And I want to urge you to please give us feedback. We are absolutely listening super closely, and the team has been fantastic. I sit with the team. We've been quietly, secretively working on this project for many, many months. I log bugs. I walk into their offices. I need this feature. I need this now, and this is why. And lo and behold, a couple days later, Jeff, here's the new build. Here's all your bug fixes, and here's all your new features. And so our goal with Honolulu is to release a new build like once a month. So guess what? You need a new feature? Guess what? Add it. And if it's the top of user voice, you better believe the team's going to see it, and I'll probably get it really quick. So it's a great way to interact with us and build the management tools that are going to make you happy and make you most productive. So with that, we're running short on time. We got 10 minutes left, but one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted this to be a really interactive session. So we tried to cover some of the big questions about what Windows Server is doing, but we also know that we're sure we missed something. So please, if you have any questions, come on up to the mic. We'd love to hear them. We've got a few of the top questions that we have heard before, so we'll go through those. But we already have a question. Go right ahead.
Well, we don't always know whenever we deploy a server that the application that we're going to put in there is going to be a 5-year application, a 2-year application. Sometimes you have an application that lasts you 10 years. Mm-hmm. And if we go to a fast build like the 1709, what are our options? Are we going to be able to just do an in-place upgrade and hopefully it will continue to move, or do we need to have the ability to go from the 1709 to a full build? That's
a great question. So if I'm deploying a new application, I think part of that question should be, first of all, what type of application is this? If this is a brand new application that your dev team has written, there's a very good chance that they're probably writing it or in the process of moving to containers. If I was moving to containers, I would have zero hesitation about moving to the semi-annual channel builds, because when the new build comes out, they can just incorporate the image and go. If this is a traditional commercial off-the-shelf COTS type of application, like my dentist has an application, okay, and it requires some big fat GUI and they haven't modernized and they're still looking kind of 2008-ish, 2000 kind of 12-ish, they haven't really modernized their world, then that's probably something I would stick with LTSC and the Server 2016 and go with that. But if this application is under your control and you guys are building it, I would urge you to take a look at containers and that model, because honestly, you're going to want to build that in from the dev standpoint. You're going to want to build in continuous integration because the benefits are manyfold. One of the questions I was asked this morning was, Jeff, if I've got an application, a .NET application running on 2003, and it just works, what is the benefit if I literally just take that application and drop it into a container running on Server Core in 2016? What's the big benefit? I was like, wow, there are so many. Let's get started. First of all, security. If you're running on 2003 compared to 2016, the kernel here is just drastically different. Literally by doing nothing. Nothing. Just by literally taking that app and put it in 2016, I can't even tell you how many more times we've made it secure. By all the kernel enhancements, device guard, credential guard, remote credential guard, all of the things we've done over the years, that kernel is so much more hardened than it was back in 2003. That's the simple one. But the easy one is your agility from a development and an IT standpoint. Because now that application is literally packaged in an image file. It's a single file. Think about today when you deploy an application, what do? You double click on an installer, and heaven forbid, it creates directories, it spews things all over the registry, it puts everything all over your server, and who knows exactly what and where. Okay, and then when you have to uninstall it or update it, you hope the uninstaller works, you hope the updater works, and if it doesn't, ooh. With a container, you literally type docker run. Everything in the container starts up and runs. When you're done, you say, you stop the container. Guess what? It's all encapsulated in that single file. It runs every single time. That's the beauty of it. How many times has a developer written an application, given it to you in IT, and said, would you please deploy this? And you go to deploy it, you run the installer, guess what? It doesn't work. And you sit there and you look at the docs and you read it and you try and make it work and like you're hitting your head against the wall and it doesn't work. And finally you call the developer and you say, hey, you know that app you gave me? You know that app that compiles and has run on your machine every single day for the last 2 years perfectly? I can't get it to run in actual production. And the dev says, oh, send me some logs and we'll take a look at it. And guess what? It still doesn't work. You read the docs, you try the whole thing over and over again. Finally the dev gets mad, calls your boss, says, your IT people don't know what they're doing. I gave you a perfect app. This app is the Mona Lisa of apps. It works every single time on my dev box, but you guys can't run it in production. So he calls your boss calls you and says, make the dev happy. So what does the dev say? The dev says, give me admin access to your server. And now you find a quiet place in the office and start to weep uncontrollably. Because you know that developer is going to log into your server and do God knows what to that server. He's going to log in, oh, well, you're missing this. Oh, you're missing this updated framework. Oh, you're missing this PowerShell script. Oh, you're missing this automate. Oh, you're missing this library. Oh, look, it works perfectly, just like I told you, right? And now you've got this server that looks unlike anything else in your infrastructure. And from an IT standpoint, you're supposed to support this? With the container, I literally say, developer hands the container to IT, and IT says, Docker run, and it works every single time because the entire app is in the container. That is gold. That is why people are moving to containers, because this whole problem between IT and dev, this impedance mismatch, gets solved because it literally works because it's encapsulated. So, huge benefits to moving to a container.
I think there was one other question tucked in there as
Yes.
well, which he asked, which was, can I go from a 1709 release back to an LTSC release?
Good, yes.
And the answer is no. It is a redeploy situation if you're wanting to go back to the LTSC release. So that's important to know.
Can we assume that there's not going to be any more R2 releases for the long-term support side of things?
You know what's interesting? I'm glad you asked that question. Do you know why we did R2 releases? Because people got it in their heads that what you really want to do with Windows Server is wait. You got to wait till the SP1 or you got to wait till the R2, and then it's good to deploy. What people don't really realize, and I mean you will if you think about it, is there a different domain functional level from every release of Windows Server? Yes, the answer is yes. Those were completely new operating systems. Every single one of them, all the R2s, all the numbers, they were all brand new operating systems. We called them R2s because it made you guys feel better, candidly. But they were all full operating system releases.
Spoiler alert, we could have called Server 2008 R2 Server 2010.
Yeah.
We could have called Server 2012 R2 Server 2014.
So a little inside baseball about how we've thought about the naming over the years. The short answer is we don't know yet. We don't know what we're going to call it. We will have another LTSC release in 2 to 3 years following the last release, which was last fall, which is the same thing we've always been doing. And we'll stick a name on it, whether it's an R2, whether it's 2018, 2019, whatever it ends up being. And it'll be a full rev of the OS, too, at the same time. Hi.
So I think you answered the question about moving between channels, but just kind of the long-term support cycle. So for the LTSC, do you have any idea yet what it's going to look like to move from 2016 to, say, 2019? If that's going to be similar to Windows 10, and I guess same with semi-annual, if your 1709 can easily just in-place upgrade to 1803, or what exactly that's going to look like?
So on the server side, that's a great question, and I'd be curious to know a little bit about this too. On the server side, we've always kind of shied away from in-place upgrades, and most people I talk to just simply don't do it. Every so often, in fact, I ran into a customer yesterday that does it, and I was stunned. I was like, really? Okay, tell me more. And the rest of the folks were like, oh my God, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Most people, when they go through a server upgrade, actually describe it as not an upgrade, as a migration. So if I'm running Server 2012 R2 and I move to 2016, it's a domain controller, what do? You set up 2016 as a domain controller, and then you actually sync, and now it's over here. If I'm using Hyper-V and I'm running 2012 R2 and I go to 2016, what do? You live migrate over your VMs over there, and that just works. If you're using SQL Server or applications that do any sort of replication, that's kind of how generally people do it. Most people I talk to, not in their wildest dreams, think, I'm running 2012 R2, let me take the 2016 bits and just install it and run it right over. And the reason why is generally because you want to make sure you've got an option to back out if you need to, or more importantly, it's usually the application vendor doesn't support it anyways. So even if we did the work to support it, at least for like a full LTSC desktop experience, they say no. Now, when it comes to the semi-annual channel for server core, and nano server, this doesn't really apply to you because you're just going to deploy a new image. For server core, running on hardware for like Hyper-V, this actually does make a lot of sense to me. And this place, and this is the one place where in-place upgrade does make sense. If I was running 1709 right now, I would love to be able to tell you that in 6 months, when the next release comes out, and you're running Hyper-V on hardware for our infrastructure role, guess what? Just do an in-place upgrade and it just works. That to me makes sense and is logical, and I don't have to worry about any third-party support. So the way I'm leaning and the way we are looking at this right now is for infrastructure roles where we control the horizontal and vertical, I would like to support in-place upgrades. So it's real simple for you guys. So go from RS3, 1709, to RS4, to RS5, whatever. It's just, you do the upgrades, and because we have mixed mode clusters, we can support all these, and VMs just move around, and storage just moves around, and everything is good. So I'm curious, if we supported in-place upgrades on infrastructure roles on hardware, does that sound interesting to people? Yeah? Okay. And if I didn't support in-place upgrades for full server with a GUI and a third-party app like Oracle, is anybody going to do an in-place upgrade on Oracle upgrade in place? Is anybody going to do that? No. Would you do that for SAP? No. Would you do that for SQL? No, no one would do that. Would you do that for Exchange? Of course not. You'd set up a new Exchange server environment and you'd sync across, or you'd move to Office 365, either one of those things. But again, in-place upgrade, I don't see that. So that makes sense. And then, of course, for Nano Server, you just replace the container image. So thank you for that little straw poll. You just confirmed what I thought, and that's what I would like to do. That's ultimately what I'm pushing for internally is for infrastructure builds, just do in-place upgrades for server core.
I think they're going to kick us out, but we will stay here for a few more minutes afterwards and answer a few more questions. Come on up.
He's got one more question. Go ahead.
He's trying to get our microphones off of us.
Thank you guys
everybody.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and we'll be up here. And if you have any more questions, please come on up and enjoy the rest of Ignite.